Hi, I'm Seth, and welcome to Thrift Store Tech. You know, sometimes I'll find a deal that seems just a bit too good to be true, and it usually is. You know the kind of deal I'm talking about, but sometimes, despite my better judgment, I'll go for it anyway. What can I say? Case in point, a few months back I came across a deal on Facebook Marketplace for an Atari 2600 lot with a console and games and some controllers, and it was out of my state, so I shot a message to the guy asking him if he'd be willing to ship it, and he came back with a quote that, again, felt too good to be true, but I took the shot anyway. And after a couple of weeks of drama and back and forth and many excuses from the guy, I finally got the games part of the lot in the mail, which was what I really wanted to begin with. But the rest of the lot was still missing, so after going back and forth again for a bit, I finally got the guy to agree to send the rest of the lot for an additional $20, which I wasn't wild about, but I still felt that it was within the realm of fair. So I told him that I'd send the $20 when the console and the controllers arrived intact. Well, they didn't arrive intact. The casing on the 2600 was broken, the RF cord coming out of the console had just been cut, and the joysticks, which were complete and intact in the ad, arrived like this. He actually cut the cords. And this was still not the whole lot, but I was just done by that point. So I hope he really got a good laugh out of sending controllers with cut cords, because the joke is on him, because I know how to fix them. Let's go to the bench. So to get started, I purchased a few replacement DD9 Atari style joystick cords from Alibaba. These were about 98 cents a piece, so I'm not losing a whole lot of sleep over it if anything goes wrong with them, but they should work just fine. And I have actually already taken the pin out for an Atari joystick, matching it up to the female front one, and I was able to map out which wire goes to which contact point, and I have written down the color codes here, so that I know that the red wire is my up, black is down, gray is left, orange is right, brown is input A, that actually won't be used for this, green is fire, white is 5 volts, blue is ground, and 9 is input B, and really we won't be using the input A, the input B, or the 5 volts for this right now. So let's go ahead and open up our joystick. It's just 4 Phillips head screws. And there's our last one. So let's open it up. As we can see inside, we have one more screw to remove. Oh, sorry, over here we have one more screw to remove. That's for our main circuit board. So I'm just going to go ahead and undo that one. This one's a little smaller than the other one, so I'll make sure to keep track of that one as going there. And you might notice on here there's a bunch of hot melt glue holding the wires in place. So we're just going to peel that away bit by bit. And we'll heat up these wires to desolder them. Now, I am definitely not an expert in soldering, so this is probably going to look a little grungy to some of you who are more skilled than I am, but I know that it will get the job done. So I'm just going to take my helping hands and clamp it in. I'm going to start heating up those contact points. And really, this is a very basic soldering iron that I've had for years. It is absolutely nothing fancy. Neither is the soldering pump. I think this cost all of $1. So, got that out of there. I'm going to undo this and make sure that these wires come free easily, which they are not. So I'm going to give these a slight pull while I desolder from this side. So we need this one. And that was the last of it. So now those wires are out, and thankfully, if you can see up here, they have actually labeled these very conveniently. It might be a little hard to see on camera, but we have down, up, left, right, fire, and ground. So I already have these mapped out to what the colors correspond to. And that soldering is looking just a bit grungy, so I'm going to just take a little more time to solder pump some of that out of there. As I said, definitely not a soldering expert. I'm sure that some people out there could do this much more cleanly than I am doing. And looking at it, it looks like my holes are all clear. So now I'm just going to take my replacement cable and get rid of that. It's the old. I'm going to take my replacement cable and I'm going to untie it. And I'm just going to take each of the wires and I'm just going to tin them. And I know I'm only going to need 6 of them, and there's actually 9 here. I will be using the red wire for up, the black wire for down, the orange wire for right, the gray wire for left. The brown is input A, we won't need that. Green is for fire, we will need that. Blue is for ground, we will need that. The white and the yellow are for 5 volts and input B, and we won't need either of those. So I'm just going to cut those right off because they are not necessary for this particular controller. Those would be used if we were doing a repair on an Atari paddle controller. And I am just going to take each of these wires, I'm going to give them a little twist, and I'm going to tin the ends so that they have a bit of solder on them. Unfortunately, I do have kind of shaky hands with this, so bear with me. I'm just brushing the solder across the wire to make sure I'm coating it. And I've got a glob of solder on the tip of my soldering iron, so just to clean it off, I'm going to stick it there into the steel wool sponge, pull it out, and that will take the solder blob right off the end of that. And I will still need that. And I'm just going to start going down my list with what's necessary. So I need down first, that's black. So let me grab my black wire. And these wires are very thin, so they pretty easily go in there. And now that's nice and secure, it's not going anywhere. I'm just going to trim off this end so we don't have any shorts. Next one is red for up. And I'm going to repeat that for the rest of these, with left being the gray wire. And there's my solder blob right there holding that in place. And lastly, my blue, my ground wire, is just going to go into the last hole. And once again, as I said, definitely not an expert at this, but what I can do is just check to see if any of these have a short, just to make sure I haven't bridged any solder connections. I'm just going to take my multimeter and put it into continuity mode. I'm going to start over here and I'm going to check each point to make sure that I don't get a beep. And we're all good. If I had had a solder bridge, it would have made the multimeter beep like this. And since I did not get that, these should all be good connections. Now the last step is just to reassemble it and test it out. And I'm going to take my smallest screw and I'm just going to tighten it in there so that my board is nice and secure. And now my board is nice and secure. I can move this all over. It's not going to fall. Let's take the bottom half of the base and I'm just going to slot the controller cable into it right here with the notch. Going to put the top half back on. Cable's nice and secure, it's not going anywhere. And I'm going to just put my screws back in to tighten everything up. Starting with that one that still did not come out. And I'm not going to over tighten these, of course, I don't want to crack anything. So I'll just turn it until I get a little resistance, maybe give it a little nudge after that, but beyond that, it should be good. Yep, everything's nice and secure. My cable's in. Let's go test it out. Okay, for my test setup, I just have an Atari Flashback hooked up to a little TV. That was another thrift store find, by the way, but that's a story for another day. And I have plugged in my repaired joystick into player port left. So I'm going to turn this on. Let's go over to the screen. And I'm going to go down through the menu. So my down is working. I'm going to go up through the menu. Also working. Left. Right. And I'm going to check my fire button by starting up a game and playing a moment. And here's Centipede, which is going to be kind of hard to do one-handed, but let's see what we can do. If I beat this level, I will be absolutely shocked trying to do this with one hand. Oh my gosh, I actually did it. I'm finding it very difficult to actually steer with one thumb on the joystick. But bottom line is the joystick is working. So there's my repaired joystick. No thanks to the guy who sent it to me with the cut cord. I hope you enjoyed this quick look at the repair of the 2600 joystick cable. With some basic soldering skills, they can be easily fixed if you ever come across any controllers with damaged cords or cords someone has deliberately cut just to mess with you. I did notice that these updated ones from the Flashback models, which can be identified by the Atari logo in the upper corner, were a very simple fix compared to the classic original ones. So what are some of your own thrift store tech finds? I know they're out there just waiting to be found, and I'd love to hear about any of your finds in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe as it really helps the channel to grow. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.